Now in its 9th year, this is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network. Talk like you've never heard it before.
Hey everybody, this is the Ramble, and I am Alex, and we go until midnight tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, out on the West Coast lives a guy named Larry Bubbles Brown, and if you're fortunate enough to live with him, you're probably laughing all the time. Hi, Larry.
I know my rats are. So.
Your rats are? Do you have rats?
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Can't have rats in the marina. They wouldn't allow it.
Well, we have rats in New York, and it's the law. So, I don't know. I've seen rats in the subway. I've never seen them anywhere else. But we have rat. We have a rat system. They just appointed a rat czar.
Really?
This is the person who's in charge of trying to kill all the rats in New York.
But you only see them in the subway, so maybe it's not that big a problem.
So Trump ran for cover. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be here all week.
Well, you've got that. You're like one of the cities like here where they're not prosecuting crimes, so I guess there's a bunch of things going on about that back there.
That's a misnomer. They're not prosecuting non-dangerous crime. In other words, if you stole something from a store, they don't consider you dangerous. Okay? Now, granted, you probably should be arrested for something and made to pay a fine or return whatever you stole. But what happened was I went to the pharmacy up here, Rite Aid, and I went in there one day, and there was nothing on the shelves.
It's all locked up.
And finally I went over to the pharmacist and I said, No. I said, what happened to all the stuff that was on the shelves? He says, it was all stolen. But we never replaced it because they just steal it again.
Yeah.
So all the shelves were empty. I mean, the Pampers and the things like and I was amazed at how much stuff was missing. And then finally they started locking everything up. But that's a pain in the ass because you have to then go find the person to unlock it. Although there's a new thing they've got where you can unlock it with your phone. What do? You type in your phone number, and then it sends you a 4-digit code, and then you simply tap in the 4-digit code, and it opens up the thing for you. So, Isn't that interesting?
Great way to live. Yeah, they just had a Whole Foods out here that was open for a year, and they just closed because there was so much theft.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
And danger to the employees. Crazy people running around.
I've been told, somebody sent me, I've been talking to Chuck Farnham. So he doesn't live in the Bay Area anymore, but he apprises me of everything that goes on in the Bay Area. And he was telling me, the homeless thing is terrible in San Francisco. And I went, how terrible is it? And he sent me pictures. He said, this is Van Ness Avenue. Is it true? Are there tents all up?
All up and then worse on Market Street, yeah, and same in Oakland.
Wow.
Just goes on for blocks, yeah. It's really bad.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible.
And people are using the street as a public toilet, so now that's actually causing bad pollution in the Bay.
You know what it is? We have absolutely no sensitivity for the poor, for the homeless, and so we don't do anything for them. So where are they going to go? They're going to pitch a tent on Van Ness Avenue or on Market Street. They're going to take a dump in the street because nobody's letting them use a toilet. Do you remember once I had a thing? I noticed that the reason why people were pooping in the streets in San Francisco, I said, was because they can't poop anywhere else. Nobody's letting them into bathrooms. And I was in New York one day, and I was in the hotel we were staying at, which was a Sheraton, and a poor person just walked in, a homeless person walked in, and the guard said, "Where are you going?" He says, "I want to go use the bathroom." He says, "Get out of here." And I'm thinking that's why they're shitting in the streets, because nobody's letting them. Nobody's letting them use the toilet. So when I came back to San Francisco, I got a hold of, I guess it was Angela Alioto, and I said, "Angela, you know something? We should allow people who want to use restrooms in even privately owned facilities like hotels and stuff, who want to use the bathroom, to be allowed to use the bathroom." And she said, "You know, that's a great idea." I said, "Because otherwise they're just going to be crapping in the streets." So
but part of the problem that Whole Foods closed because people were using their bathrooms to shoot up, and there was all kinds of drug paraphernalia in there.
That's a different story. If they're going in there to poop, I think it should be allowed. But anyway, what happened was she passed a law. She couldn't get one passed where you could go into the St. Francis Hotel and use their toilet. But any public facility that was owned by the city, such as parking garages, of which there were numerous ones. The Union Square parking garage was owned by the city of San Francisco. That those bathrooms should be made available to anyone who wants to use them. And they passed that law. I like to call it Bennett's Law. But that I thought was a good idea, and I don't know what's happened to it, because obviously people are pooping in the streets and not pooping in the Union Square parking garage. But there are other parking garages around town too, and I just felt that we don't have sympathy for the homeless. Okay, oh, those bums, they're out on the street, they're causing crime and they're doing this and that. No, most of them are just trying to survive, and we should be better towards them. We should do a better job of taking care of them.
Well, I guess they don't do tents on the street in New York.
I haven't seen any. Okay.
It's so common here.
But there are, how can I describe it? There are parts of the subway system that are underground, and so far underground that there are people down there living. And there's a whole population, a subterranean population in New York City.
Wow.
And I just think if you want to help the homeless, do something to literally help them. Give them a place to sleep at night. Give them a place to live. Give them some kind of what we could call a handout with dignity. The reason most of these people don't want a handout is because there's no dignity involved in it. They make you feel guilty for taking something for free. And I just, I don't know. How do you feel about it? I mean, you're a pretty decent human being.
Yeah, I don't want to see anyone suffer, but the problem they say here is that 90 to 95% of the homeless people are drug addicts or mentally ill. So they should have institutions for these people. Well, they shouldn't be on the street.
Well, then I guess the answer to that is that we should make what do you call it? We should make those drugs legal. Okay, why not? Being illegal is costing us a lot of money. So I mean, and also it makes them more. Believe it or not, if you don't allow drugs to be given out freely, any drug, and I'm talking about heroin, the worst drugs you can think of. For instance, if you had the state dispensing heroin, there wouldn't be any dangerous drugs added to them. There would be no fentanyl in the heroin. There is fentanyl in the heroin now because they put fentanyl in because it's a cheap way of boosting it and padding it out and then selling it, and people get high off of it, but they don't know if they're getting high off of fentanyl. So I mean, if we want to control that situation, we've got to make all that stuff legal, but legal through the city or the states that these people live in. And they did that in England. England has if you're a heroin addict and you want heroin, you can get a prescription for it.
Really? Wow.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, we just don't take care of these things logically. Americans are not logical people, and so every problem that we have, we take care of and solve in the most unusual ways. I just can't, it's very hard to believe, but
we tend to spend the most money and get the least return for it.
Yes, and we just we take a bludgeon approach to stuff, But anyway, what were we talking about last time? There was something I wanted to talk about, and I can't remember now.
We were talking about women comics.
Yeah, but then we got into something else, and I was thinking we should talk about this. Oh yeah, that we don't know enough about each other. That I talk about my friend Shecky, who I knew for 45 years. And we talked every single week on the phone at least, and many times before COVID, I would go out there every other week out to his place, and we'd hang out. We'd go to a sushi bar, and we'd talk about everything under the sun, but it was usually about movies and television and things like that. But then now that it's, he's gone, people say, well, how much did you know about him? And I said, not a hell of a lot. It wasn't like he was forthcoming with everything, I never knew a lot about his fears and his hopes or his dreams or whatever. He just never revealed himself on that level to me. And I don't think he revealed himself.
Ever married?
No, never married. But he had a good reason. He said, I really enjoy being alone when I want to be alone. And you can't do that when you're married.
Exactly, yeah.
If you do that when you're married, the first thing you hear is somebody saying to you, is there anything wrong? Right? And I always respected that out of him. My problem was I got married too much. Every time I fell in love, I married somebody. Mm-hmm. So I've been married 4 times.
Wow, I didn't know it was that many times.
Oh, yeah. First wife, I can't even, I don't, her name was Linda. That much I remember. And the last time I heard, she was working as a waitress in a restaurant in Hollywood. That's all I know about what happened to her. And then my second wife was Ronnie, who you didn't know, but most people who knew me in the earlier years knew. And Ronnie and I remained friends throughout her entire life. Well, actually, it was a period of time we didn't talk. And then one time I got a hold of her and I said, I want to have lunch with you. And she says, okay. She was amazed I wanted to have lunch with her. And we sat down and I said, you probably wonder why I wanted to have lunch with you. She says, yeah, I was kind of wondering. I said, I want to apologize. And she said, for what? I said, for being a terrible husband. And from then on, we were friends again, And we had a fairly decent relationship till the day she died. And then my third wife was Susan, who you may or may not have known. She came with me from New York to California, but that didn't last long before I finally had to move out. And I won't say why, because she's still alive, but she had problems. And problems I couldn't live with. And so that was my third wife. And then I didn't get married, God, for 20 years, something like that. And then I married Marjorie. So,
Poor time. Wow.
And I remember Marjorie actually proposed to me on Leap Day. And it was a leap day because on leap day, women, by tradition, can ask men to marry them. Okay?
I never heard that. Wow, that's cool.
They can propose. So she proposed. And I remember what my reply was to her. This is the most romantic reply you will ever hear in your entire life. I said to her, well, I can't see any reason why not. And then we were out in California, and I said we were out there to go see a showing of Napoleon out in Oakland at the Oakland. What's that big theater out in Oakland? The
Warfield, not the Warfield.
No,
the
Fox?
I know the one. The Paramount.
Paramount. That was it. They were showing Napoleon, the silent film by Abel Gance, and they had a symphony orchestra and a score written by a guy by the name of Clive Davis, and Carl Davis, rather. And so we were going out for that, and we were going to meet Shecky out there to see it. It was like a thing that Shecky and I had figured we were going to do. And I said to Marjorie, "You want to tag along?" She said, "Sure." So we went out, and before in advance of Shecky, and I said, as long as we're in California, you know what I love doing? She said, "What?" "I love taking a car and doing a run to like Lake Tahoe. I used to do that in the middle of the night sometimes. Go up, gamble a little bit, and then drive back. By the way, it's a 2.5 hour drive there. Let me say that to people, but I like driving." So she said, "Sure, let's do that." I said, "Well, as long as we're going up to Lake Tahoe and you propose to me, why don't we get married?" So she said, "Sure." So we went out, we bought rings. She called up, found some woman who had an all-encompassing service where she would marry you on the lakes of Lake Tahoe, because she was able to marry people. She was a kind of a justice of the peace. I can't remember what she did to be able to do that. And then she would take pictures of you, right? It was all-inclusive service for like $500. She would get the license, all of that, send the license off to be filed. So we did that, and we got married on the shores of Lake Tahoe. Then we came back, and the first person we saw was Shecky, because we met him at the Walt Disney Museum in the Presidio. And we said, "Guess what?" And he said, "You got married." He said, "I knew you were going to do that. Once you were in California, you couldn't prevent yourself, And I went, yeah. And there's another point at which Shecky was involved very intimately in a big moment of my life, So.
Well, one of my big regrets is that I never got to meet Shecky.
Yeah, but I was saying to Marjorie the other day, I don't know, there were certain things about Shecky I guess I never really knew. I knew about his family. I knew about him. I knew elements of his growing up and things like that. But, you just never really completely know somebody. So I asked Marjorie, "Do you know me? Do you feel you know everything about me?" And she said no. And I said, "Well, some night we're going to have to sit down. You're going to have to ask me any question you want to ask me. Okay? And I'll be compelled to answer." And she said, "Fine, that sounds good." And I said, "But I want to be able to do the same with you." So do you feel there are people you know that somehow you only know so much about them, but you don't know everything about them?
Oh, pretty much everybody. I don't get that close to people.
In other words, you don't care.
Yeah, I don't care, yeah.
Really?
But I don't think they say you never really get to know someone until you live with them, and even then, as you say, you might not know them.
Now, you've never been married, right?
No.
Why?
The same reason that your friend said, because
Shecky never got married.
Shecky liked to be alone, yeah.
Yeah. So you relish your
like a lot of alone time.
Okay, so now you've had girlfriends in your time, right?
I've had 5, yes.
You had 5? You can only name 5?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, you were particular, weren't you?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And why did they all fall apart? Was there a common reason why they all fell apart? If I'm asking too much, tell me to go fuck myself.
No, I just really found as soon as we were together, I just found that, oh my God, I'm kind of tethered to this person, and then I started to resent them. So then I always wound up to a lot of fights and things, and I just was like you said, you were a bad husband. I was a bad boyfriend, and so it's probably my fault. So.
Well, I was a bad boyfriend. I was a bad husband because I couldn't keep from cheating.
Oh, that could be a problem.
Well, let me say this, and folks, don't think less of me for saying this, but I've always lived with the feeling, how can you spend your whole life saying you're only going to have sex with one person?
Yeah, monogamy is not natural.
Well, I don't think monogamy is natural at all. Certainly we don't expect it out of animals, do we?
course not.
You know, although there are monogamous animals. Do you know that the coyote mates for life?
And some birds.
And I believe, what else? There was one other thing was monogamous, but I know coyotes mate for life.
Did not know that. You would think they're kind of wild.
Yeah, you would think so. But when I talk about animals, they are the one of the few animals that are monogamous. And then once that mate dies, they then go out and, you know, find another mate. But they are monogamous to a fault, actually. But I'm not the coyote. I'm a human being. And I don't think human beings are meant to be monogamous. I mean, males are meant to inseminate the herd, aren't they?
Exactly, yeah.
You know, for instance, lions, it was said, do you know the reason they mate so much and want to have so many kids? They want to perpetuate their bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
There's a conscious thing about perpetuating their bloodline. And you know, I guess that's the way I felt. Isn't that honorable? Yeah, not that we really should perpetuate, but we're not going to perpetuate my bloodline. I'm the last Schwarzman alive. Yeah, I mean, there are Schwartzmans. There are people who do it with a T, one N, whatever, but a Z and no T, and then two N's. I'm the last one. Yeah. So,
end of the line.
Yeah, and probably if Marjorie has her way, I'll turn out being a char-baked human being eventually. So, you know. Are you going to be cremated?
That's what I'm leaning towards. Yeah, I definitely don't want to be buried.
Yeah, well, I have claustrophobia, so I don't want to be buried. I would like... Years ago, when I was working first time in New York City, I worked at WMCA, and in those days on radio, you had what we called live reads. In other words, you'd had this book full of commercials, and you would just read them, okay? So I had a live read for this company that used to sell above-ground mausoleums. and I remember the ad to this day. Why settle for a normal burial when you can be buried in an above-ground mausoleum? And I had to do this with a straight face, mind you. And then I thought, well, you know, that's not bad. You know, I have claustrophobia, so an above-ground mausoleum seems like a good idea to me. You know, it's not. It's enclosed, but it's not claustrophobic, right? Anyway,
yeah, I got the claustrophobia too. So being buried, that would be like an eternal MRI, wouldn't it?
I see. I didn't know that about you. See, there's something I just discovered about you. I didn't know you were claustrophobic too.
Oh, that scares the shit out of me. Yeah.
I can't. My biggest fear in life. You ready for this? In old age, is they're going to put me in an MRI machine.
Yeah.
And I've got to tell them, no way you're putting me in. I don't care if I die. You're not putting me in an MRI machine. I might do one of those open MRIs. Have you heard about those?
I've heard about those, but
yeah.
There are many people that cannot do an MRI.
Yeah, no. I mean, the idea, if you put me in there, I'd be screaming. I don't care how. And you can medicate me. I mean, if you want to put me out, fine, but they don't put you out for an MRI. And I have claustrophobia. It's just, you know. In fact, I can't hug too long. Because if I hug too long, I get that claustrophobic feeling, right?
Wow.
You know, I put my arm around somebody and we can hang out together and we can be close. And I don't get claustrophobic when I'm having sex with them. But man, my claustrophobia is extreme. I have a real fear of it.
Yeah, I think buried alive would be the worst thing in the world.
Buried alive? Oh. Yeah. Did you hear about this guy that invented an alarm for caskets in case they bury you alive? You can hit the button and an alarm will go off.
Well, they used to have bells, so you could ring the bell. That's the Saved by the Bell. Apparently, comes from that.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I didn't know that. See, little facts you get by listening to Larry Bubbles Brown. You wouldn't know from anywhere else.
Yeah, like a couple hundred years ago, sometimes people would be out. They couldn't tell they were still alive, so they would bury them, and
yeah.
And the would be, oh my God, that'd be the worst.
If you're buried, how are they going to hear the bell?
It's the bell ran. They wrapped it around your hand, then the string ran up through the dirt, and they had the bell above on the
really.
plot. Yeah.
Well, I learn something every day at the hands of Larry Bubbles Brown, who has now run out of time.
Like those people with the bell, we've run out of time.
God, I love talking to you, my friend.
You too, my friend.
You're terrific. Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Bubbles Brown. Say goodbye, Larry.
Bye.
Now in its 9th year, this is GabNet, the great American broadcast network. Talk like you've never heard it before.
The wonderful, the lovely, the attractive Larry Bubbles Brown. I wish you could see what he looked like, but unfortunately he doesn't have the ability to go on Zoom because he doesn't have, first of all, he doesn't have a phone capable of it. And even if he did, he doesn't have, are you ready for this? He only has dial-up. Okay. Apparently in his building they haven't put in, internet connection. So, which I find hard to believe in this day and age, don't you? Oh well, maybe is he lying to me? Bubbles wouldn't lie to me. Let me see here. Oh, a lot of people are waiting to come on here. I can't believe this. This is a whole a passel of people, a whole giant bunch of people. Hi, everybody. Hi, Jeff. Yeah, and Charlene, and hey, Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing. I'm okay.
What do you mean? What's the problem?
I think his Warriors lost.
Warriors lost tonight, so Game 7 on Sunday, and my friend's up from LA for a car show Sacramento, and he's sort of broken down, so I'm going to help save him now.
Oh, okay. So everything is, when you say like this, that's part of all the problems that you're having.
Yeah.
Which is worse, your team not winning or your friend breaking down?
I'll tell you Sunday if the Warriors win.
Okay. Hello, Josh. How you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. I'm doing fine. You know, I'm trying to figure out I'm having problems with my Wi-Fi here, and my lights and everything are controlled by the Wi-Fi, and for the Wi-Fi only in this room, right, is causing a problem. So I don't know. So I had to leave my lights on all this time because I finally managed to get them on, and I figured I'd leave them that way, you know. So, and let me see, Charlie, how you doing, Charlie?
Oh, I'm pretty good. Lucky to be alive.
Yeah. What is? Oh God.
What? Lucky.
We had the mother of a thunderstorm earlier tonight, man. I thought I was gonna get washed away.
Well, you see, it's God trying to get even with Texas.
Yeah.
You know. Because God believes in abortion, so you know. What does it say on your shirt tonight? Well, we always have to have him.
It says, "You matter, unless you multiply yourself by the speed of light twice, then you energy."
Kevin, hello, my friend.
Hi, Alex. How are you?
I'm okay. All right. Yeah.
Listened to your show today. It was excellent, I must say.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, same here.
Oh, you mean the show I did last night?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, people have said that. In fact, even the guy who recommended me for the thing wrote me today and said, sounded great. He said, you should be doing more. It's a guy who works over at WABC here in New York. And to begin with, I walked out of there last night just completely energized. I don't know what it was. If you look at the video that Marjorie and I did down the subway afterwards, I'm like, it took 10 years off my life.
I think we got around the equipment and everything else, and you just felt back at home.
No, it's just being in a studio.
That's what I mean.
You know,
It's
which
better on the
which
equipment.
let's be honest. If I did a radio show these days, I probably wouldn't be in a studio. I'd probably be sitting at home like this doing a show. You know,
Right.
sending it off to the station. But just that feeling of being in a radio station and sitting there, and I got an engineer, you know, and things like that, and I got another guy next to me. It just kind of it energized me. I don't know why. It just invigorated me. So the guy said he's going to go look for other stuff that he can recommend me for. So I don't know.
Oh,
Little late in my life to get back into radio, but what the hell, you know. And I don't know that it's radio. I think it's the process that just energized me. Because, you know, as soon as I got into a studio and the mic went on, I just, boom, I just popped it, you know, just started into work. And, you know, well, I'm glad you liked it. How many here heard it?
I
Wow.
heard it on the way home today. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Where's your picture all of a sudden, Brian? Oh, there you are. Okay. I'm trying to figure
Yeah, since I'm driving, it's probably in and out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I listened to it on the way home today. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Plus, must be relaxing when you don't have to worry about all the equipment.
Well, that has something to do with it. You know, the weird thing, though, is being in a strange place doing a show. For instance, they had, what's that making noise? We you know, the earphones there didn't work very well for me, at least. You know, I like my earphones to sound a certain way if I'm going to use them, and to be able to hear myself back. And they really weren't any good, so I just didn't use the earphones. So I was just talking. That was it, you know. And so I'm glad you liked what it was. I mean, I don't know why it was so good. I didn't feel I was struggling at any point. But, you know, I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I couldn't, you know, when she asked me to do this the day before. So that kind of is awfully close, you know. I didn't think she was going to say, well, you want to do it? Yeah. Can you be here tomorrow? You know, I didn't think it was going to be that soon. So I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but I felt it turned out okay. I was happy with it, you know. And I'm glad you people had a chance to listen to it. If anybody wants to listen to it, it's on my Facebook page. And
I think you hit a couple of good topics, and the guy you played with, that guy, pretty good. You know, the guy who was there with you, not the
It was Alex and Matt.
Yeah,
but then
Alex and Matt, not Alex and Alex.
Not Alex and Alex. Yeah, well, the other Alex, I enjoyed that discussion because you know, I mean, I as getting older, I feel that I need certain accessibility factors, like walking down, as I said, in the subway and having a banister there. Although somebody said the term banister is an old term, so handrail, okay, grabbing a handrail. And they're not everywhere, okay? You know, before I can go down a set of stairs, I got to have that there. Not because I need it, but because I want it to be there if I do, you know? So, now, what's interesting is, you know, Vernon is the nicest guy in the world. I enjoy having Vernon on this show, and he's terrific. And he wrote me a note today. Can I read this note? Do you mind, Vernon?
No, I don't mind.
Yeah, because Vernon is planning for my death. You know, he wrote this.
What does he want?
Huh? he wants to be in my will. That's what he wants. No.
Could I have?
Yeah, right. I know it's not a pleasant subject, but you've developed a resource that should remain your legacy after you're gone. Ronnie did this with her website, and it still lives today.
Wow.
Well, it was supposed to live because somebody's supposed to take it over, but nobody really took it over. It's just been sitting there the way it was the day that, practically the day that Ronnie died. While I realize you would, what you do to be difficult. Wait a minute, let me try this again. Maybe I should have him read the letter. While I realize that what you do would be difficult to teach someone else to do, the audio and video archives that exist should go on being available after your passing. Okay. See, I don't think in those terms, but it says nobody could take your place, but if the Ramble could continue only one night per week, I see a value to that. I think that many regular callers would as well. Think about it, please. Your friend in cancer, Vernon Nunn, because he had prostate cancer.
We talked about that one night. We talked about doing that one night.
Did we?
Yeah, and we talked about how you had Life in the Fast Lane as part of your legacy.
Passing lane, yeah.
Yeah, passing lane, yeah, and you had a lot of other archives that you said that were with Damien.
Yeah,
and that you just needed to put them together.
Well, you know what? I haven't been able to. No, that was Damien's archives. That we when I was dealing with that. But
yeah, but you said you had some that were stored with him or out here.
Oh no, I have a storage out there with tapes that are still left. Basically, I've got most of the audio tapes here. But the thing is that after I go, see, here's what happened with Ronnie. When she went, she told the people who ran the website that she had all her stuff on, or the server she had her stuff on, that she was dying, and what could she do after they were through? Could she pay them money in advance or whatever? And they said, well, no, we think what you do is so important that we will keep it running forever after you're gone. But you have to understand, all this stuff has to reside on a server somewhere. And it's usually not yours. In my case, it's YouTube, where it probably would still last on YouTube, the video of these shows. But, things like Life in the Passing Lane, where do I have that? I have that on GoDaddy. Well, if I drop dead tomorrow and nobody pays the bill, no more GoDaddy.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I still have all those files. Well, I wouldn't have the files any longer. I suppose Marjorie would have them, and I've never shown her where they are. So maybe you got a good point, Vernon. I don't know. Or maybe what I do should die after me.
I don't think so.
Well, I don't know. Everything I've ever done was of the moment, for the most part. I think with the exception of my life story on Life in the Passing Lane, I think everything I do is like, it has an expiration date of like 2 days from now.
The conversation came up when we were talking about Shecky and what he knew, and there was no legacy left behind with him.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's what we were talking about you.
Yeah. Well, when I talked about his legacy, a lot of what he had to pass on to people was kind of verbal knowledge. I mean, I learned a lot from Shecky, and so I guess I guess his information lives on in me. But what my idea was, it probably lives on various parts of this information in a lot of other people. Maybe we should all get together in one site and start telling the stuff that Shecky told us, because he never wrote a book. He never had a podcast. He didn't do any of that.
Right.
And I never sat down and interviewed him at any great length. So, the question is, what do what the worth of Shecky was the wealth of information he had, and it didn't reside anywhere in particular. Yes, Charlene.
Well, I was watching, I don't know, like it was all over, the clips of him on Letterman, like him naked in the shower and, all that stuff, the Elvis, all that stuff.
He wasn't naked in the shower. He was naked having sex with a Xerox machine.
Right, and then there was another one where he's naked again with the shower set up. And, he was always doing a lot of, but he's got a legacy of little clips from the Letterman show.
Yeah, but those are bits. That's not what he did.
No,
that's not. If I want to remember Shecky, it's fun to watch those, but that's not.
But you guys would make like a documentary. You're saying like
no. You don't get what I'm saying. What I'm saying is he was a repository of an incredible amount of information about films, about the history of films, about who
Fatty
did
Arbuckle
what when.
And stuff like that. Right.
Well, there's more history of film than Fatty Arbuckle. Although he taught me all about Fatty Arbuckle, the true story behind Fatty Arbuckle. But that information all disappeared when he died. So you go, what? You go through life and you're like a what do you call it? A snowball going downhill, and you're getting larger and larger, getting more and more information, and one day you get to the bottom of the hill, you slam against a wall, the snowball flies everywhere, and there's just nothing left. And what good was all that information? Unless you wrote books, and then you made those into. Am I right? I mean, Josh. Does a lot of writing and stuff for, right?
I've written
about
thousands of pages.
Thousands of pages about history, and when he goes, those will be there for people to read. Okay? But with Shaggy, there was nothing, except him screwing a Xerox machine. And that was not what Shecky, the worth of Shecky. Okay.
There's no oral history. There's no oral history that you know about him.
The worth of Shecky in the aftermath. I mean, his biggest contribution to the Letterman show were all those films that he went out and got, the old black and white films. My favorite. Everybody loved the cat washing a monkey. A monkey washing a cat. But my favorite was the owl eating a mouse, in which there are two owls on either side of him, and they're looking, you know the one I'm talking about? Looking very stoic, and the one in the middle is going and swallowing this mouse. And I found that hilarious. But it's that contribution to the Letterman show that was his biggest contribution, so. If I say to people, "I was Shecky, who's he?" Well, you remember the Letterman show? Yeah, remember Elvis? Oh yeah, that's Shecky. And so people remember that. But if I mention the film clips, they really remember those.
But what you mentioned about YouTube, is there a way that you can upload the Life in the Passing Lane episodes to YouTube?
Well, I started to do it, but for the last final 2 episodes, I just have to go back to every one. I have to make a video track of it with a slide, and that takes forever. If I had done it as I went along, it would be there, but it isn't there now. So
you can't just upload audio files?
You can't upload audio files only. You've got to have some kind of video going with them, whether it's just a slide. On the ones that I have up, it says, Alex Bennett's Life in the Passing Lane, and there's no video. There's a video picture, but there's no video stuff going on. Okay, so, but I'd have to do that with every one of the. What is it? How many episodes? 70 episodes of the show. So I don't know. I don't know what I would do with that. I'll just send them to you, Vernon. You can do with them what you want to,
Okay.
Yeah. You can pass them on to other people. Yeah.
I just need your login for your YouTube channel so I'll be able to upload them.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know what would happen if tomorrow I just, kick the bucket. Marjorie wouldn't really know what to do technically.
Not too many people would. I mean, I'm in awe at some of the things that you have taught yourself to do.
Yeah. I'm in awe of all the stuff I'm starting to forget how to do. So. Boy, it got dark in California really fast, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because I look out Kevin's window in California when we start the show. The sun is up, and within a half hour, the sun isn't there anymore. It's 20 minutes past the hour out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm tracking my daughter. She's driving out to Dinuba for the first time, and I'm hoping she gets to where she's going before it gets too damn dark out there.
You know, there are cities in California. They keep mentioning cities in California on the news, you know, when there's like a disaster of one sort or another. And some of them, they're towns I never heard of in California, and I was raised there. You know, and I remember, where is Dinuba is the question. I'm trying to remember where Dinuba is, because I know the name, but I don't know exactly where it is. So, anyway. So, Josh, anything in the news that's meeting your fancy?
Up to 400 now.
Huh?
Somebody said something. I didn't hear what they said.
Kevin walked away, but he said something.
Oh.
We have
Oh.
400.
He's probably trying to tell me.
Kevin.
He's probably trying to tell me where Dinuba was. But now
Stupid Kevin.
now he's gone again. Okay. Well, anyway.
There you go.
Oh, okay. So, if Kevin, where's Dinuba? I know the name, but I don't know where it is.
It's up by Fresno.
It's up by Fresno.
East of Fresno.
You mean down by Fresno?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sanger, Dinuba.
See, those are cities I never heard of, and I lived in California all my life.
Yeah.
I've heard of Sanger.
You've heard-
Reedley, Sanger, Dinuba,
Yeah.
Kingsburg, Selma.
Dinuba sounds like a wax.
Selma, California.
Dinuba sounds like a wax you put on your car.
It sounds like something you get between your toes. I got Dinuba.
Oh, I got a bad case of Dinuba.
You better go to the doctor.
Yeah.
I got some cream for my toes in Dinuba. Yeah.
So what's
my daughter lives out there,
yeah.
and my daughter that lives here is going to her place for the first time, and she's driving, I don't know, 100 and something miles for the first time, and you know, I'm just making sure she's getting there okay.
Oh, okay.
Tracking her.
So, in other words, you've got a daughter who is really driving far away for the first
She's
time.
pulling the I'm 18 card, and I can do whatever the hell I want now. So she's going to her older sister's house to get a tattoo tomorrow.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, tell her tattoos are passe, okay?
Yeah, well, I told her that, and then she says, yeah, whatever.
You know, because...
What is she going to get?
Huh?
What is she going to get?
Oh, she's going to get some flower or some shit. I don't know.
I love Dad.
Yeah, that's what I said. Get a daddy daddy tattoo.
Yeah, they're going to get a daddy tattoo over your...
And I told my older daughter, if she gets drunk, I'm blaming you.
And if she gets drunk and gets the tattoo...
Yeah, well, that's usually what goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
Well, when I was in the Navy, guys would get tattoos, okay?
Yeah.
They would go into town, they'd get off the ship, they'd go into town, and none of them ever got one sober.
Yeah.
They were all drunk when they got the tattoos. Now, that's not the case today. Today they get tattoos because I guess it's the thing to do, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But I would never...
I gave her 3 patterns of one that I want. I said, here's 3 that I've wanted for about 10 years now.
Oh, like she's
going
to... Yeah, like she's going to do that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, she's going to follow
Yeah,
Daddy's
right, whatever,
suggestion.
Dad.
Yeah, she's going to follow Daddy's suggestion for a tattoo. Yeah.
Give her something to do while she's sitting there.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, I never got a tattoo because I didn't want anything that was that permanent. That if I had second thoughts years later, you know, I couldn't just do anything about, get rid of it. I think
we had that talk too.
Yeah.
I said, when you get old, that thing's going to sag a little bit, so you watch where you put it.
Yeah, well, when I was in Ibiza years ago, I was out at the beach, and there was this old guy. I'll get to you in a second, Charlie. I see your hand. I went to this old guy. There was this old guy sitting there. God, it had to be 80, 85, something like that. He was old. And he had a tattoo that you could barely, it was like all saggy because, you know, he's old and they sag, right? And it was a woman's name. And I got into this whole thing in my head about, does he even remember that woman? You know, I mean, at the time it seemed like a good idea to put his name on her arm, but today, does he really want to remember her all the time? I mean, hell, that might have been a wife that divorced you and left you with no money, you know. But you got the tattoo.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Charlie?
I was just going to point out that tattoos are getting more and more popular. As of 2020, 30% of Americans have tattoos. In 2012, it was only 20%.
Really?
So it's just more and more people are getting tattoos now.
Well, I never got a tattoo. I do have I have 4 tattoos, by the way, because when I went and I got the irradiation for my prostate, they had to put markers on me, and it's like a little dot. It's a little tattooed dot. Marjorie was looking at me one day, and she was looking at that part of my body. What is this? I said, this is a tattoo. It makes me.
2 of them.
I said, it's great. It makes me feel like a sailor. You know. I mean,
I've got 2 of them, the same reason.
do you? Oh, you mean for the same thing? Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I gotta tell you, I do know that you can have them removed, but they're hellacious to get removed. But they did have this stuff that it said you could get rid of the tattoo by just putting this ointment on your tattoo every night, and eventually it would fade away. Now, Marjorie, on her ankle, has a tattoo that says Buddy. Now, I don't know who Buddy was. I don't want to know who Buddy was. But I always had this dream that late at night while she was sleeping, I'd get some of this ointment and start putting it on the part where it says Buddy, and just slowly have Buddy fade away, you know. But, yeah, I asked her, can't you have it fixed and maybe have Alex put in there or something? Yes,
Sure, why not?
Yeah, Charlene.
Oh, as usual, I probably have something stupid to, contribute, but I don't see that Kevin has any tattoos that I could see. But does he have a tattoo at all, or
I don't know.
No.
Oh, okay.
But
I have one. I have one right here that I filled in like a hole above my lip because I was afraid, like you, Alex. I didn't want to put anything real permanent all over myself, because when you get older, it's ridiculous. Like you said, it sags, right?
Right. But Alan?
All right. So there's the dermatologist to remove a tattoo. It's called a rosebud laser. And don't get excited, Brian.
But it only removes rosebud tattoos.
Yeah, yes.
Here's Alan's medical minute coming up.
That's right.
And it's expensive.
What?
It is expensive. It is expensive, and it's painful. I have a couple tattoos, but
I was told that they can easily remove certain color tattoos. I think like red tattoos or something like that. But other tattoos like blue tattoos, they can't. It's very difficult.
So red comes off pretty easy. Black or dark colored is harder.
Yeah.
Is what I hear. I don't know.
So anyway, I didn't want to, Oh, look, he's outside now.
Oh, is that what's going on?
Yeah, the sun's going down in the background. And
going down in my neighborhood too. How about that?
Huh?
It's going down in my neighborhood too.
Well, it's you're the same guy, and look at the window and
You sure that's not a green screen in the background?
Yeah.
Nope.
Boy, tonight my mouth is not working well.
Hey guys, I'm taking off.
Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Oh.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay.
I hope your friend's okay.
Yeah, we'll get him going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night.
Yeah.
Thought he was pulling a Ray Renati.
That's what I was thinking, Ray Renati.
Yeah. But anyway, so I never got a tattoo. And,
Really?
Yeah.
It surprises me.
Wait a minute. Jeff, Jeff raised his hand. You have a tattoo, Jeff?
No.
Why? Because I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
You could never be buried in a Jewish cemetery.
That's true. That's true.
That's the other thing.
Plus the other thing.
Unless it was a number, right?
That's correct.
Well, Lenny Bruce had a bit about this. He said that he wanted to tell a story on the air when He was on NBC once, and he wanted to tell the story about him getting a tattoo and his mother, or his, going, "Oi, you can't get buried in a Jewish cemetery." And they said to him, "You can't do that joke." He said, "Why?" He says, "Well, it's offensive to the Jewish people." And he said, "But I'm Jewish. And I think I can determine what's offensive to the Jewish people and not offensive to the Jewish people." And then the guy said, "But it's also offensive to the Gentiles as well." And he said, "Why?" He said, "Because you're inferring that they'll bury anybody."
They will.
But I always heard if in fact, when I got these little tattoos, I said, well, I guess I can never be buried in a Jewish cemetery. And they were dead serious with me. He says, "No, we've checked with rabbis and it's okay because it's for your health."
You get out of there.
Yeah.
That's a Jewish hook.
Yeah, and a certain sets of numbers.
What?
If you have numbers on you.
Well, I mean, if you were in a concentration camp
That's
and
right.
you had a...
That's right. That was Kevin's point.
Oh, I see.
And he's correct.
I didn't even know that.
What?
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
They make exception for Holocaust.
Oh, yeah,
survivors.
of course. Of course. I mean, one of the reasons why the Nazis did it was because they knew about Jews not wanting to get a tattoo.
Oh, I see.
But you see, the idea is, I guess you have to leave life the way you came in. And then the first thing they do is circumcise you. I don't understand.
That's what I was going to say.
Only for boys.
Another way to
Wreck your instinct right away.
Doesn't make sense to me at all.
do hard.
Yeah, I mean, all us Jews lose an inch right away.
Yeah.
Off with his penis. God damn it.
Yeah. Well, no,
Oh, I love when they say that. Have you ever been to a bris where they say the kid doesn't hurt? The kid's screaming his guts out. What are you talking about?
I told you about the bris I went to. I went to my friend, ex-friend, David Feldman's son's bris.
Is this the time you fainted?
Yeah, no, he said, "I want you to be part of the bris." He said and what there is at the bris, one of the people there is supposed to read a passage from a book that the family holds near and dear to them. And he said, "Since you're an announcer and you could do a good job of reading it, I want you to read it." And I said, "Okay, what's the passage from the book?" He says, "It's from Moby Dick." And I read from Moby Dick at this bris.
Oh, Jesus.
So, he was a rather perverse individual.
Does the child who's now an adult, does he know this?
Oh, the kid is.
I think he's probably read Moby
I think
Dick.
the kid's maybe 30 now, 35, something like that. Yeah. You know.
Was it a significant passage from Moby Dick, or? I mean, it was just a Moby Dick thing, or?
It was just a passage. He called me Ishmael. Whatever. I can't remember now.
Oh, okay, that's significant.
Yeah. But anyway.
Moby Dick was Jewish?
Does it sound like I'm talking okay tonight? My mouth just feels all puffy tonight. I don't know why.
Fine.
Anyway, so that was that. What was the other thing?
Did you have to wear a yarmulke when you
What?
Did you have to wear a yarmulke?
Yeah, we wore
when you
yarmulkes.
was a
Oh
kid?
yeah. And they got an actual brisser, rabbi, who was the moil. That's what they call them. And then they take a rag, and they dip it in wine, and then they stick it in the kid's mouth, so he gets a little drunk, so that it's not going to hurt as much. I mean, it's going to hurt, but you're never going to remember it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, how many? I shouldn't ask how many here are circumcised, but I'm sure Jeff is circumcised, right, Jeff?
Let me look. Yes.
Yeah, you're Jewish. What? Of course you're. Yeah. And how about you, Alan? You're Jewish.
Yes.
You were, yeah.
uncircumcised.
You know, if anybody else
I'll
wants,
show everybody.
no,
if you
no,
want.
no. If everybody, well, you know, the thing is that it just, you know, it was. I don't remember. I don't think any of us remember
That's what they say, right?
the bris.
You won't
I mean,
remember.
I don't remember anything until I was about what 4 or 5 years old. Didn't remember anything.
No,
Me
I
too.
think
Consciously remember.
Huh?
Subconsciously, we don't know.
Well, we don't know what we remember subconsciously. No, no. But-
Maybe that's the reason you're claustrophobic is because of being circumcised. Huh?
No, no. I think my mother was very kind of cloying, you know, hugging and all of that and stuff like that. And I think maybe that got me claustrophobic. Yeah. What, Alan?
So I went to a circumcision. First one I was ever at. I was like, I don't know, 30 years old or something. And the father, the friend of mine, he hit the floor. He passed out. It wasn't even him that was getting circumcised.
Well, what happens is traditionally after they circumcise, I think, does the grandmother hold the child while it's being circumcised? I think so. Yeah. It's
No,
tradition.
I thought it was the grandfather.
Or the grandmother takes the baby right after he's been circumcised to nurture him. You know.
Okay.
Right.
You know.
Then everybody sits around and gets drunk while the kid lays there in pain.
Oh,
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Well-
was just funny. You know, the father said, would you come and be with honor? And they had a rabbi that was a bris, and he did.
It was a moil, not a bris.
Moil that did the.
The bris is the activity. The moil is the guy who does the activity. And he only works for tips.
I was checking to see if you had your shit together. Obviously better than me.
Yeah,
So let's
Charlene.
talk about cooking.
Charlene, what?
No, Alex, my son was circumcised at Beth Israel. Like I'm glad I was at Beth Israel. I'm not Jewish, but I wish I would have thought to ask them, was it a moil that did it or something? I don't know. Me and my husband, we were just standing. We heard that my son screaming and crying and everything, but we knew he had to get it done. You know,
I don't think
everything's okay.
I don't think I was done by a moil. I think I was done by a doctor, if I remember.
Yeah, not sure.
Yeah,
what-
urologists do this all the time.
Is
A
it
urologist?
urologists that do it?
Sure.
I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
talk to my urologist and see if he still does. You know.
He's probably got a collection of them. You sew them together, it makes a purse.
Well, you know, there's a big.
Real killer.
Yeah,
You rub
they're
it,
just
it turns in. If you rub it, it turns into a suitcase.
they're just
Like-
like pork rinds. You just fry them up and put them in a
Oh,
bag.
stop it! Stop it! There goes my monetization for tonight.
How do you know those pork rinds weren't?
Oh,
pig-
shut up! Shut up! Don't make a joke about it. You know. Well, you know, there's a big question that has been come up in the last couple of years as to whether circumcision is warranted. You know, they used to say it was for health reasons.
Bullshit. Oh, sorry.
well,
Didn't
no-
mean to be
Okay, we know Charlie is uncircumcised.
Yeah, well, but this is the point. They say no, that's not true. You know, there's no health reason to do it. They say, well, you know, you get all that stuff in there. It has a wonderful term,
Soap and water.
smegma.
Yeah.
I love smegma. You know.
Human race survived hundreds of thousands of years before
Well,
Jewish people started
yeah.
circumcising.
I think that what it was is it just became a Jewish tradition, and then it was passed on to Gentiles and wanted everything Jews have. I don't know.
Everybody wanted
you
to be Jew. Yeah.
Yeah. It was basically I can't remember the reasons. I think they didn't. Did they say it was for health? Jews? What, Jeff? Do you remember why Jews say that you should be circumcised?
I heard that it's healthy for some reason.
Yeah, well, that's what I
But
heard,
that's-
but it's
I don't
not
think
true.
there's any
But it's not
truth to
true.
that.
So
It's a little
Yeah.
harder. It's a little harder when you're uncircumcised, I think, to keep that area.
to keep bacteria out of that
Keep
area.
bacteria out of that area. But
You just clean it. What are you talking about?
all right, well, you
can
know,
clean your hands. Why can't you clean your?
and you know, in the case of our good friend here, Alan, how many Q-tips does he need? You know, so. But I mean, I'm not unhappy being circumcised. You know, anybody here who is circumcised regret it? No.
No.
Only Charlene.
Yes, I regret it.
Yeah, right. Anyway, yeah.
Hey, that's not funny. They do have a kind of circumcision procedure for women, and it's not.
Oh, well, that's like in
That's
Africa.
mutilation.
Yeah.
Cut out the
Well, so
clitoris.
is circumcision, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they destroy your sensation, like, or something.
Well,
Well, there's one theory
That's
that's
a
what
lot of
circumcision
pleasure,
does.
right?
what a way
So
to
Biden's
start out
82.
life. What a way to start out life. And let me ask Josh something.
So Biden's 82, you know.
What?
I said
Yeah,
Biden's
he's
82, isn't he?
No, he's 80 now. He'd be 82.
Oh, he'll be 82, and yeah, okay.
in
Thanks.
24 when he's
Thanks for correcting me, Charlie.
And Nikki Haley has said that she feels that he probably won't make it to 86, so he'll never see the end of his second term.
Oh, boy.
And
Setting
Nikki
it up for
Haley's
Kamala.
an expert on that.
This
right?
from a woman who's washed up at 50.
Right.
Yeah. You know. But I never felt Don Lemon said anything terrible there.
Speaking
Yeah.
of stupid Republican women, did you hear what Marjorie Trader Green said today?
Oh, is there?
Oh, God.
Do we have to?
Now what?
I can only imagine what.
Adoptive mothers are not real.
They're not.
They're not
mothers.
because they're not real mothers because they're not biological mothers.
Oh, boy.
I think it'd be funny if she found out she was adopted.
I got to tell you that mothering is that the term mother has a rather wide definition. You know, I mean, you mother somebody. You don't have to be a woman to mother somebody. You know, but she's a jerk.
Well, I found that particularly offensive since my wife and I tried twice to have biological kids and failed.
Yeah.
And so we adopted twice.
Yeah,
Because that's the only way to have kids.
And she raised them, and you raised them, and
Exactly.
she
Yeah,
raised
but
them,
she
and therefore,
doesn't count now, according to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
yeah. Well, but believe me, she's a mother. Okay, you know.
No, she's a mother effer.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Kevin,
Yeah. Yes, Jeff.
did you have difficulties with your children and who the original mothers were? Did they know each other at all?
Oh, the birth mom, you mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you adopt them when they were just newborns, or what?
No, our kids did not know the birth mother or father. Our son was 5.5 months old when we got him
Yeah.
because the parental rights for the alleged father had to be terminated through the courts because he never responded to any of the correspondence where they were asking him to acknowledge paternity. So the courts had to dissolve his parental rights through the court system. Our daughter, however, was a much different story, and the mother and the alleged father were very cooperative, and we got her at 2 months.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
You got her at 2 months.
She was 2 months
And
old.
how about your other child?
Our son was 5.5 months because
Okay.
it took longer to terminate the
Okay.
parental rights through the court.
But really, so far as history is concerned, she's the mother of those children.
Oh,
You know,
exactly.
she raised them. You
We
know.
both did, yes.
Yeah, and you're the father. There's no question about that. You know, it is just terrible, though, that when Marjorie Taylor Greene says something like that, she doesn't realize she might be hurting somebody's feelings.
Mhm.
You know? And that's what I find specifically cruel about the woman. Yes, Jeff?
Yeah, somebody I know who, in the family, had 2 sons,
Mm-hmm.
what I call natural sons, okay?
Mhm.
And then they wanted to have a baby girl,
Mm-hmm.
and they tried to have baby girls. And they couldn't do it. They were not growing up properly. Okay,
Yeah.
so they were taken out from the pregnant procedure. I really don't know, but eventually they adopted a girl, and for some reason that she eventually knew who her original mother was.
Birth mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And always a lot of problems, emotional problems between having two mothers.
Yeah.
Well, we had a situation in our family where an aunt by a second marriage was on my wife's side of the family had given up a child for adoption when she was young, and she got older and decided she wanted to track down this son, and she did, and she went up to where he lived and knocked on his door, and he had no idea that he had been adopted.
Wow.
See,
Talk about a shocker.
Yeah, I had a girlfriend, and she got pregnant by me, and then she decided to give up the child. I was 19 at the time, okay, and she decided to give up the child for adoption. And in those days, I had no say-so in the matter. You know, today I could protest and say, well, you don't want the kid, I want the kid, okay? And then I would have done that. In fact, I even offered to. But you had no say-so in those days. And consequently, she gave the kid up for adoption. And years later, I thought about going at trying to find the kid, you know, and trying to see what happened to the kid. And finally decided not to. And the reason I decided not to was exactly the reason why Jeff brought up. I felt that it was the kid's job to find me, not me to find him. And the reason being that I don't want to go knocking on his door one day and saying, hi, guess what? I'm your dad. You know, after he spent his entire life not knowing I was his dad. So I decided not to for those reasons.
It was very traumatic for the aunt I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When she did that,
yeah,
it destroyed his life.
Yeah, yeah. It's you know, now I don't know this. I don't know what happened to this kid. I have certain ideas of what might have happened, but I never pursued it. In fact, the mother of the kid got a hold of me in later years when I had a radio program in San Francisco, and I said hi, and so I didn't want to talk to her about what happened. Okay, because maybe she'd blanked it out of her mind or whatever. And I kept kind of hinting, like, you know, you had a rather profound effect on my life. And she said, I can't understand why. And I'm going, either she isn't this woman she says she is, or she doesn't want to remember. And then she wrote me and told me about a son she had who's having all kinds of emotional problems. He's quite neurotic. And I went, maybe that's my kid. Because she was describing some personality traits that would apply to like me. Yeah, but I never pursued it. I got very mad at her because she wouldn't talk about it, you know, and I didn't want to force her to. So, but anyway. So listen, Josh, I wanted to ask you, our renowned Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, do you think he's going to go speak before those committees?
No, I think he said he wasn't going to, and he sent a letter.
He declined, yeah.
But didn't he also say something today about the fact that he thinks he knows who leaked all that stuff about Roe versus Wade and so on ahead of time?
The Chief Justice did not. Justice Alito said so.
Alito, okay, all right. And but he didn't say who, right?
No, he did not.
How many think it's Clarence Thomas? Raise your hand.
He did not believe that it was a member of the court, and that he did not believe that it was done by a supporter of the decision. He believes that it was leaked by someone who had access that wasn't a opponent of the decision in order to try to get the public to pressure the court into changing their minds.
Yeah.
I think it was Jenny Thomas.
So, I don't know. He does not believe that it was done by anyone.
He thinks maybe it was like a clerk or something like that.
You're not the Republican Party. He's not done by anyone on that side of the fence as far as that particular decision went. No. I mean, in other words, he didn't think that it was one of the conservative or right wing, whatever you want to call them, justices, clerks, or anything like that. He feels like it was done by the dissenting side to get it out there as early as they could, to whip up a campaign in the media to pressure the court, which is exactly what happened, by the way. But that doesn't mean he's right. I mean, I have no idea who did it, but that's what he said. He said that was his opinion. So
I don't know how many of you watch Fox TV, Fox News, but occasionally I tune over there to see what they're talking about. Call me curious. Oh, by the way, Tucker Carlson's slot is now being done by Brian Kilmeade, who was I think on the morning show they had, right? Fox and Friends.
They put somebody permanent because they said they were going to rotate a show in there. They're going to rotate a news show and put different people in.
Right. Well, anyway, they put that show on, and without, what's his name? The first night out, the ratings were kind of pretty good. Mainly because everybody, I guess, was, curious about what was going to happen. By the end of the week, they had lost 2/3 of their audience in that time slot. So I guess Tucker was good for business. See, I figured, I think I know what went on, and I mentioned this last night, and that is, this is a business of money. And if you're not making money for the business, then you're out of there. And I don't care how good your ratings are. You can have the best ratings in the world, but if advertisers don't want to advertise with you, then goodbye. We'll see you later. We'll get somebody in here who can get 1/3 of the ratings, and at least we'll get back some of those advertisers.
It's always been that way.
Always been that way. And I think that's why he's out of there. I think it's a very simple reason. But I did hear at least 3 late-night talk shows all do the same joke. And that joke was about the fact that they think that the reason why Tucker Carlson hasn't made any major statements about his firing was that Fox had recordings of embarrassing stuff on Tucker Carlson. And then the joke that every one of them said was, yeah, they recorded all of his shows.
Yeah.
Yep.
Shit.
And then the Russian ambassador to the United Nations said that Tucker Carlson was fired because America doesn't believe in free speech anymore. And then Russian TV offered him a job.
Probably take it.
Huh?
He'd probably take it.
Yeah, he probably would take it. I don't know.
He's a fascist. He'd fit right in.
Hey, all he has to do is go to the internet, do a podcast, and he'll make probably more money than he was making working for Fox. Because he will get there are enough of he has fans. I mean, I know that's hard to believe, folks. The people are that moronic, but he has fans, and I think he would do pretty well. Tell you the damn truth.
Sirius XM maybe.
No, Sirius XM wouldn't take him. No.
I hear there's a slot available. It used to be at the Alex Bennett slot.
Well, look what happened to Glenn Beck after he left Fox. He was making money hand over fist.
He had his own little network and things like that, and he was doing fine. And he still had the radio show, which he's had for years. That was making him money. So Glenn Beck never hurt after he was thrown out. And what Fox did was allow him to build his name, build his brand. But, you know, if you want to talk about terrible, Glenn Beck probably made a lot of you wince, but he wasn't as bad as Tucker Carlson. You know? I mean...
I guess I didn't know how bad he was because I never watched that network.
Well, you know, I find it interesting to watch Fox occasionally. I can't watch it for more than 5 minutes at a time. You agree with me, right, Kevin? That I find it infinitely interesting to see. It's kind of like you're going into this bizarro world where up is down and down is up and sideways is in the middle, and it's just everything. It's a whole bizarro world. I think if you remember the comics with Superman, and there was a bizarro world where everything was different than it is. And I feel that way when I go over to Fox. It's bizarro world. Today I'm watching them, and I watched them. I turned over there twice, and both times they were having discussions. Ready for this? On the subject that they won't give up on, Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
Now to the detriment of MSNBC, I turn over to MSNBC and I never hear them ever talk about Hunter Biden. You know, somewhere there's a little bit in the middle you could do. But I mean, it was like Fox, it's like they're constantly grinding away at Hunter Biden this, Hunter Biden that, the Hunter Biden laptop.
It's almost like that's all they have left, too.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Many times I go over there and they're talking about it. It's the only thing they got left.
Well, it is. I mean, you know, for their whatever, you know, however you feel or whatever, Biden's presidency, despite the lack of enthusiasm from people, has been, you know, successful. I mean, look, I didn't just call him FDR. I just mean it's been successful. They've moved the ball forward. That's called success, right? I mean, you know, there have been no disasters, no terror attacks, no economic crashes. No, I mean, you know, a return to normalcy. They passed some legislation that was bipartisan. I mean, it's been successful. So they don't really have anything to talk about other than his son, who is a troubled person, and his age. I mean, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
They won't admit.
They do walk right by the fact that, you know, their guy is also an older person with troubled kids,
right?
Which is odd, but you know, but they do. So there it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you know, Tucker Carlson obviously said things on air that he knew was not true, and is admitted as such, and doesn't even care, and basically just did it to make money from people who were too stupid to realize that he was lying to them just to make money. You know, I mean, and everyone there knew it, and no one cared, which is odd because, you know, like, is Paul Ryan still on their board, right? I think
so.
But,
yeah.
Paul Ryan?
Did he leave there, or is he still there?
Where? At Fox?
At
I
Fox,
think he is. I think he's still on the board.
I think he's still on the board there. I haven't heard that he wasn't on the board any longer.
But 3 or 4 months from now, somebody will be saying, well, you know, that Paul Ryan, he was pretty mainstream. He wasn't too bad, you know, like I'm supposed to respect him or whatever. Back to what I've been saying for months or years now is, no, I'm totally done with them.
Hey, there's the theme song, folks. I know you can't hear it, and I don't know why, but I'll hum it for you. Anyway, Jeff, I want to thank you for being here. Charlene, nice having you here. As always, Josh, always terrific having you here. Very intelligent. And thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. And I hope your daughter winds up where she's going.
She made it perfectly fine about 20 minutes ago.
Okay, but just remember, I don't want to worry you. She's got to get back. Anyway.
Yeah, well, that's Sunday.
And she'll be drunk and be suffering from tattoo rash.
Yeah, well, that's her problem. She's 18 now.
And Vernon Nunn, thank you, and thank you to Alan. Everybody, give a big wave goodbye, and I'll give a big wave goodbye at you, okay? Bye. That's our show for this week, folks. It's all over for this week. We'll be back here on Monday for the pop-up show at 4 o'clock. That goes out over Facebook. And then, what? Oh, yeah, next Wednesday, we're back here, 10:30, same time, same station in life. So in the meantime, as always, if you see her, tell her I love her, okay? Bye-bye, everybody.